The West Bloomfield School District continues to provide high-quality math instruction through exemplary curriculum, professional development, and leadership.
Hello, I'm Superintendent Jerry Hill. I'm here with Alicia Fly, Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. We're joined today by Margaret Hendrickson, Math and Science Assessment Coordinator for the West Bloomfield School District. We're going to meet with teachers from all levels today, including Aaron Polasek from Gretschko Elementary School, Mary Lou Hirich from Orchard Lake Middle School, and Ajay Bedai from West Bloomfield High School. Alicia, the West Bloomfield curriculum is designed around rigorous Common Core state standards for mathematics, as well as the state grade level and high school content expectations for all other areas.
Yes, Dr. Hill, that's right. Our goal is to ensure that all students benefit from a guaranteed and viable curriculum. This means that every student has access to content and skills that will challenge them and help them reach mastery. It also means that we are very practical in our design of curriculum and instruction, or teaching and learning. We believe it's more important for students to master fewer high-level concepts and go deeply with those concepts than to rush through a long list of topics. The mastery of mathematics is crucial when we talk about 21st century learning for our students. Our students are expected to be critical thinkers and problem solving in today's world and be able to access and analyze information and possess natural curiosity and imagination. It's so important to tap into their creativity. So we're so excited that we've invited Margaret Hendrickson here today to talk to us about our math curriculum and teaching and learning in the West Bloomfield School District. And so Margaret, can you please share with us a little bit about what's happening in mathematics in West Bloomfield?
Well, I'm particularly excited this year because we, through a culmination of a lot of teacher leadership work, we took 2.5 years to really look at what we wanted math instruction to look like in our elementary classrooms. And with a lot of teacher work and board approval last year, we were able to move forward with an adoption and purchase of a K-5 new math program called Bridges in Mathematics. We all started the year with a lot of excitement, actually some goosebumps. A lot of teachers were very excited because they heard a lot of great things from pilot teachers and students and parents around the new mathematics program that we piloted for a few years. And so we've been off and running, and I know yourself and Dr. Hill have been in a lot of classrooms seeing math in action in the elementary classrooms, and there's a lot of good energy around that. So we're very excited.
You're absolutely right. There has certainly been lots of enthusiasm regarding these new resources available.
So Aaron, you teach second grade at Gretschko Elementary School. Tell us about the new instructional resources that teachers are using to support instruction.
Well, like Margaret mentioned, we were lucky enough to adopt a new math program, which is Bridges in Mathematics. And I was lucky enough to be on the pilot team that got to take a look at other instructional materials that were available at the time. So I'm beyond thrilled that we chose Bridges. It was by far the best choice, especially for our district. I feel like Bridges offers lots when it comes to instructional materials. There are 3 main components to Bridges. You have your main math lesson every day that you do. You start off with like a launch, lots of student engagement. I feel like with Bridges, it's really moved away from the teacher being the instructor and more of a facilitator. So kids are teaching each other. After you do your main lesson, almost every day they would go off to like a workplace, which you'll see a little bit later on. And then the third component of the Bridges Mathematics program is a number corner. And it's a separate piece entirely from the core curriculum that we do every day. And we do it's typically separately because the math block in itself is usually about an hour. And so then the number corner takes an additional 20 minutes on top of that. So lots and lots of ways to reach kids throughout the day with mathematics.
And Margaret, throughout the district, students come to us with diverse learning needs. And I know one of the feedback that I hear from teachers pretty frequently is that these resources help to meet the continuum of learning needs that we have in our district. But can you explain why the Bridges resources were such an ideal fit for students and staff in West Bloomfield?
Well, when we started 2.5 years ago, we started our process first defining what does it mean to understand mathematics. And we really wanted to define that because the type of instruction and assessment we would choose in a new material had to match that. So we spent a lot of time looking at what does it mean to understand mathematics, and we looked at a lot of research-based practice around good math instruction. And when we started to pilot different materials, we found that Bridges really supported conceptual and procedural understanding. We all know that there are procedures in mathematics to solve problems, but the mathematics behind that, the concepts, is really important. So we needed instruction materials that would develop conceptual understanding of kids as well as procedural. We also wanted kids to be highly engaged, so we wanted really neat problem-solving, inquiry, discovery-based tasks where kids were learning mathematics but with excitement and enjoyment. And a lot of our pilot meetings, in looking at the different materials, the teachers who were piloting Bridges always came in glowing with the energy that they had in their classrooms and their students had. So we wanted something that was accessible to kids, but also provided rigor with the types of tasks that they did. So we really felt that this met those expectations of what we wanted to look for.
And certainly, as Dr. Hill and I walk into classrooms, the engagement is very high in each of our elementary classrooms around Bridges.
So Erin, how does the Bridges help you as a teacher support your students' learning of mathematics?
I feel like kind of going off of what Margaret said, that whole access to learning. I feel like finally for once we have materials where every child in my classroom has equal access to the learning of the material. With other programs, and I was on the pilot team, so I did pilot another program, and I would often find that, you know, some of my kids that were struggling with mathematics had really no entry point into the main lesson because it was teacher in front of the group teaching the lesson. There was really no manipulatives. There was no entry point for that struggling learner or even for the advanced learner. And I feel with Bridges, there's just an access point for everyone. And I've been doing it now, this is my almost going on my third year of using the materials. And I have yet, you know, in being an elementary teacher, the wide range of abilities in a, you know, K2 classroom especially is so great. And I have to imagine it is throughout, you know, K5, there's always a way for someone to participate, you know, and my advanced student is sitting there with the same smile on his face as my, you know, one that's really, really struggling, but she still has that smile on her face too. So everyone has equal access to the material. They may do it in a different way, or they may take it to another level or bring it down a level, but they still can all participate. And I think that's probably the greatest part of it.
Those on-ramps for student learning and to have high engagement in a district is so important.
Yeah.
And so can you share with us what a lesson looks like in your classroom? We'd like to just give our community an idea of what a typical lesson may look like.
So the actual main lesson in the classroom would often start off posing a problem or a question or an idea, and you have like a discussion where you, again, the teacher is a facilitator and you're getting feedback from students, and they have the ability to share their thinking and they're solving problems and coming up to the Elmo or the Smartboard to show a way that they might solve a problem. But it's a pretty big main lesson, about 20 minutes long, 25 minutes long, where you're maybe introducing new mathematics, but kind of from a discovery perspective instead of like I'm telling you what we're going to learn. They're kind of discovering what the focus of the lesson is going to be through some inquiry-based problem of some sort. And then after that, typically we would break off into workplaces at the end where you would then have time to meet with small groups as a teacher to either reinforce learning that may have been missed along the way, or you can extend learning, which is also wonderful. And then the other kids are engaged in workplaces. And then they rotate through the workplaces. After workplaces, typically you would have a wrap-up where you would have some sort of discussion about, well, what did we learn, to recap and refocus to make sure everybody understood what the idea or the main goal was at the time. So
you'll often find in a K2 classroom that main lesson might be 20 to 30 minutes, but in an upper L classroom, you might find it is going more 30 to 40 or even an hour. There was this great math lesson in 5th grade where they actually had a real-world problem around sending out orders of baseballs, and they had very specific parameters about how it was to be sent out, but the kids ended up learning about arrays, rectangular arrays, and multiplication and division and area and volume through this problem around creating all these different package ways to send out their baseballs. And so that's an example of kind of an inquiry main lesson you might see in Bridges.
So Aaron, when we were in your classroom, we saw students work at the workplaces. Tell us about those a little more. It sounds like an interesting activity for them.
Well, yeah, the kids love it. So workplaces, what Bridges did is they found a way to take Math Workshop and embed it already into their program. So instead of coming up with new ways to create a math workshop in your room, it's pretty much already done that. It's there for you, which is wonderful for teachers instead of having to reinvent the wheel. Oftentimes, a workplace is basically a station or a game or an activity to enhance learning that you've already done. So it's kind of like that whole spiral effect. I've taught a concept and now they're gonna have time to practice it at a workstation. In a second grade classroom anyway, we usually have 6 workstations going at once. And children have the flexibility to choose what workstation they would like to go to based on like their need and their interest. At least in second grade, they do have the stipulation that you have to try every workstation at least once before you can move to another workstation. And they have a workplace log that they can keep track of where they've been, as well as partnerships. Some workplaces involve a partner, some workplaces involve groups of more than 1 or 2. Some workplaces you can do on your own. There is technology involved in workplaces because Bridges has a wonderful resource section where they have links to games and other manipulatives that are on iPads and we can use on our Chromebooks that also can become workplaces as well. But really they're activities and or games that reinforce the learning that you've done in previous lessons. So.
And last year, I know during the pilot, as we had walkthroughs throughout the district and we're in classrooms, we heard so much about Number Corner. And so can you just share with us what is Number Corner? What's getting students and teachers so excited when we hear Number Corner?
So Number Corner, people like to think of Number Corner as like the old traditional calendar, like when you would walk into a kindergarten classroom, you would do calendar in the beginning of the day. And I think kids love it because it's routine. It's something that they're used to. And Number Corner in Bridges is so much more than just calendar though, which is what's great. There are 5 main components to the second grade calendar, which we do every month. So there's 5 components every month, but each month it changes, the focus changes. So for second grade, we have the calendar marker where you're actually dealing with the physical calendar, but each day there's a picture on the day of the week that might be something different. So for the month of September, the pictures on the calendar where our math racks or the Rec and Rec racks, they were pennies and they were number stories. So each day you were solving number story problems or using the math rack or the Rec and Recs and pennies to look at different patterns that you see. And each month there's something different. The month of October, we're looking at leaves and looking at patterns. But the great thing about the calendar markers is that, again, that whole differentiation piece. Some kids will look at the Rec and Rec and just see, oh, it's a double fact. Other kids will look at it and see, oh, they're noticing patterns within the calendar. For this month example, with the leaves, a typical kid might just say, oh, I see the color pattern because there's a color pattern, or I see the pattern that every 4th leaf is upside down instead of right side up. But then your higher level thinkers might say, oh, I'm noticing that on, you know, the 2, 4, the 2nd, the 4th, the 6th, and the 8th, it's in multiples of 4, or they're noticing different patterns. So they're looking, taking multiplication really into a second grade classroom. So that's one thing, but they love making their prediction about what they see. They love figuring out what the pattern is going to be for the month. So that's one routine. Another routine that we do in second grade is the daily rectangle. In this month, in the month of October, we're laying the groundwork and the foundation for multiplication and arrays. And you'll see that on the video. The kids were coming up to match the day of the month. And making rectangular arrays and again building that foundation for multiplication. We also have the routine of number line, and in second grade we're looking at decade numbers and century numbers and counting forward and backward on the number line by 10s and 100s. We also have computational fluency where we're teaching them strategies for solving addition and subtraction more fluently, looking at doubles and doubles plus 1 and, you know, adding 10. So being very strategic with our with computing addition and subtraction, not just memorizing. And then at did I do 4 or 5? I'm sorry.
So it sounds like there's a lot.
There's a lot. There's a lot of math.
And
Very
intentional
content
skill
rich.
building
But they
in a-
love
in
it.
a
And
short
you
period
don't
of
do
time.
every routine every day. You do, sometimes you just update something, and there's a calendar collector too, which right now we're doing time. Sorry. I love math now, so.
Aaron, thanks for sharing your enthusiasm. It makes me want to be in second grade again. We'll be right back to discuss the middle school level. Thank you.
We're pleased to welcome Mary Lou Hurridge, who teaches at Orchard Lake Middle School. But first, we'd like to have Margaret Hendrickson share with us about our instructional resources that are used at the middle school level in West Bloomfield.
The middle school level, we're currently using Core Connections. This is, I think, now going on our 4th year of adoption. Core Connections is published by College Preparatory Math. What is really nice about College Preparatory Math, as well as our K-5 Bridges in Mathematics program that we talked about earlier in this segment, is that they very much support one another. So the type of learning experience kids have in the K-5 Bridges in Mathematics is very similar in the types of thinkings around mathematics that kids are doing in College Preparatory Math. College Preparatory Math actually has a long history in West Bloomfield because it's been used at the West Bloomfield High School for a number of years. And when we were really starting to look at what we wanted kids to experience instructionally, to build what we wanted them to know mathematically, when we did the adoption process at the middle school a few years ago, College Preparatory Math came out above the rest in terms of meeting kind of all that criteria, some of the similar criteria we used in looking at the K-5 math program.
And I know that systemic alignment is
Yes.
so important, and so seeing that continuation from elementary to middle school and to high school is very critical in our school district.
Definitely.
Mary Lou, what does teaching look like now since the adoption of College Preparatory Math a few years ago?
Teaching looks a little bit different now than it did years ago. The teacher is not just standing up in front of the room giving information. The teacher acts as a facilitator for the children and their learning. I circulate around the room. I need to help lead my study teams through their material, whatever problem they're working on. I need to be able to question. I need to have some scripted questions. I need to have questions that are ready to go based on perhaps where they're headed right now with a particular problem. I need to be prepared these days to do formative assessment, and CPM lends itself very nicely to formative assessment in the classroom. And summary and closure is very important for our lessons today with CPM, so that we can have the students just kind of review and think about and reflect on what they've just done in that particular lesson.
Mary Lou, similarly, what differences have you noticed about students learning math lessons or learning mathematics since these materials were adopted?
The students' learning today is deeper, and that was one of the purposes of CPM and us adopting it. And what that means is that they have to explain their thinking. They have to, they can write about their thinking. They can talk to a shoulder partner about their thinking. They can write, even writing a reflection. They have to explain, can't just get the answer. They have to explain how they got it and what were they thinking as they were working towards that answer.
Are students utilizing any technology resources in the teaching and learning process with CPM?
Yes, in our classrooms for CPM, we do use graphing calculators for specifically data, when we have to make lists and deal with lists and deal with graphing and things like that. We have that. And then there are some applications for online work with CPM that they use their Chromebooks for.
Yeah, all the students have their print material books, but then they also have online access to the materials, which are much more dynamic, and there are math tools embedded in there that they can use, and then the teachers have online access to their textbook as well.
Can you share with us your favorite math moment that you've had with your students this year?
Yes, I can. The activity was called Newton's Revenge. And it was about a roller coaster ride, and whether the problem is this roller coaster ride safe for all people, particularly tall people. And the students had to gather data by measuring a reach and their height and looking for correlation, big word at this time, but this is what they were looking for, and had to graph that and make a trend line to determine whether the ride was safe for everybody, including Yao Ming, who in his day was at least 7 feet tall. And what was exciting about it is when we graphed their data and we put that trend line on there, first of all, we found out that it was safe for everybody, for very tall people. But then the point was, and I think I was able to get this across to them, that was their data. that we were making this prediction with. These were your measurements from your tables that were allowed us to solve this problem. And that was very exciting.
What I like about the K-5 Bridges in Mathematics and College Preparatory Math is we're not asking kids to do rote procedural problems, 100 pages of the same problem, and asking them just to replicate it. That doesn't tell us that they understand the mathematics. It's tasks like this one where they're non-routine, real-world tasks where kids really have to see mathematics in the real world.
We're definitely hearing a theme about student engagement. When we come back, we're going to look at our high school level program and continue to discuss college preparatory mathematics.
Welcome back. We're joined by Ajay Bedi, who teaches math at West Bloomfield High School.
So earlier in the prior segment, we talked to Mary Lou around teaching of using college preparatory math in her math classrooms at the middle school and how different it is or similar to the prior instruction materials that she used. And so I kind of wanted to get your perspective teaching at the high school. How is teaching using college preparatory math in your classroom different or similar to the past instruction you've done using other materials?
Sure. What I think about is that we're still teaching algebra. It's solving equations, graphing, multiple representation, but we're going deeper. We're talking about conceptual knowledge and inquiry-based learning, and we're doing collaboration.
Yes.
Okay, and teamwork.
When we visit math classes across the district, we see a lot of kids talking and working in teams. Why are they doing this as opposed to working individually all the time? And how do they benefit from either big teams or partners?
Exactly. We really want them in teams because learning is a social activity. We really want students to read about it, write about it, talk about it. That mathematical thinking is so important, and that's our focus in CPM.
One of the things you'll find K-12, we go back to the connections between Bridges in Mathematics and the instruction materials embedded in college preparatory math, is that focus on math discourse. Students sharing their thinking, sharing their reasoning, questioning each other, critiquing the reasoning of others, comparing strategies and ideas. The only way to do that is if kids are working in partnerships, in teams, in full class discussions. So math discourse is a huge part of what we should see in our classrooms K-12.
And Ajay, and you both have mentioned the importance of collaboration. And certainly as you group students and are doing activities in the classroom, can you just tell us how these resources, CPM resources, complement group work at the high school level, and maybe give us some examples of how you group students or collaborate at the high school level?
Yeah, what we do is that the CPM has specific roles for the students. There's a task manager, there's a facilitator, there's a reader, there's a recorder. And it helps them as they work together on certain inquiry-based learning and questions. So we do that, we do it where we work together, we do whole group instruction, we do partner instruction, and we do team instruction, just to get those kids again to be social about it, talk about it, reflect on their learning.
Sometimes collaboration isn't completely intuitive. Part of what we're teaching kids is how to collaborate, because when they're college and career, if they're going to be college and career ready, they need to learn how to collaborate. So we teach them ways in which to help facilitate their own collaboration. We give them question stems, tell them think about how the language to collaboration. We give them roles to know how to behave, and so that's really important as we think about the whole child K-12 in our educational system.
Yeah, and that's certainly what we hear. I know as a high school teacher, we interact with business and industry leaders, and they certainly talk about it's important as school leaders that we're preparing students for 21st century learning and that they are effective collaborators. So just great to hear that our students are having opportunities for those experiences.
And I understand that CPM bases each lesson on solving problems.
Yes.
Can you give us an example of what a lesson might look like in your classroom?
Sure. The other day we talked about a hot tub, and you know we all love a hot tub. It's all about, we talked about the area of the hot tub. The area of the hot tub has to be 36 and has to be a rectangle. And we gave them Unifix blocks to help them design it and model it. And we talked about how to graph this. and that this is inverse variation. So we talked about making a table, graphing, equations, and situations. It's so important that we show kids multiple representation and use a real world example to do that, Dr. Hill.
Ajay, can you share with us what excites you as a high school math teacher? You know, how are students learning mathematics in your classroom? What excites you about what you're seeing in the area of mathematics?
First of all, you know, being new to the high school, first of all, this is my second year at the high school. I'm just so excited first about the community we have. It's so beautiful to see the Laker Nation and such diversity we have in students. But mathematically, how we represent things, how we get kids excited, you know, how we promote mastery over time. That we're not going to just show it to you once, we're going to show it to you at different times and spiral, because that's so important for kids' confidence. And I really love that about the CPM.
So I think this is a very exciting method of teaching and envisioning a world where mathematics is viewed more as an intriguing process and it's appreciated by all, where the powerful mathematics thinking is becoming more universal. And we appreciate your work with our students at the high school to bring that excitement to them.
That's exactly right, Dr. Hill. This is just another example in the West Bloomfield School District, providing opportunities for students to become empowered by mathematical problem solving and reasoning that solve problems of the world. Our students continue to be great leaders, and our teachers are just preparing them for the challenges that they'll face.
Thank you for joining us today, where we have taken a closer look at how we are engaging the students in learning mathematics through problem solving, reasoning, and communication with Bridges for K-5 and CPM for college preparatory mathematics for grades 6 through 12.